Hey everyone, I hope you're doing really well, and I'm so glad that you're here with me. I really appreciate that. These are my dangly fingers. I'm right here. So I have my beautiful incense going for this video and my cute little black kitty. I thought to set the mood because I'm going to be sharing some of my paranormal experiences slash very spooky experience with you today. So I'm just going to get into this. This is about the time where me and my dad accidentally stumbled upon our first class 1 EVP, or do you call it class A EVP? It was crystal clear. So this happened on a winter night when me and my dad were watching YouTube videos, and it was about a psychic medium who was conveying messages to loved ones from their departed family members or relatives who had passed on and whatnot. So we were sitting in our living room watching these series, and our dog at the time, now he's my baby, Timothy, that's his name. And it's important that I mention him because he had a huge role to play in this. He came to us, he was a rescue dog. He came to us when he was blind. He was actually blinded by a cruel neighbor. And all of our dogs have been rescue dogs. So this was when he was really tiny and he was recovering from blindness and he couldn't see. So I was busy training him as a blind dog. He was cuddled up in the corner, and all of a sudden, Timothy just came up to the table, to the center table, and he started looking up at the wall, wagging his tail. Now, there was nobody else in the house. My mom was in her bedroom, so it was just me and my dad in the living room with Timothy cuddled up in the corner. So he immediately gets up, and then he puts his paws on the table, and he started staring up at the walls. But there was nothing else there. He was looking up, darting his eyes left to right, and wagging his tail. And remember, this is during the time when he was completely blind, so he couldn't really see. And that was really odd. That struck us really as something odd to me and my dad, because we were like, that's pretty strange. And he seemed really happy, Timothy, like he was communicating with someone whom we couldn't see. Now, this was going on, which we found really strange. And then all of a sudden, I felt goosebumps on my right hand, on my right arm, my entire arm. I literally had goosebumps, and I told my dad, oh my God, I sensed something here. And we had the software. I don't remember the name, but I do have a psychic friend who was visiting me, and he had introduced me to the software, and I never really used it because I didn't want to dabble around. But it had been 6 months since his visit, and I decided, since the laptop was there, and we were watching these documentaries on my laptop. So I told my dad, should be like, because we both sensed something was definitely there, because Timothy was behaving like this, and we also kind of sensed some presence. So me and my dad, I actually started recording the EVP through the software, and my dad started speaking in his mother tongue and asking if anybody is there with us. And I also asked, and we didn't really expect anything to come through, but we somehow just had a knowing, how you just feel that something's there when you're alone, and if you know what I mean. And so we recorded it for like a few minutes, and we played it back, me and my dad. And when we played it back, we were just dumbstruck, really. Our jaws just dropped, because we not only record... Oh my God. I don't know if the sound came through in this recording, but there was a huge thump as I was sharing this upstairs. Now, I'm living in an apartment right now with my husband, and okay, talk about perfect timing. Anyway, so as I was saying, see, now this is for getting rid of all bad juju. Bless you, bless us all, bless this space. Okay, back to the story. So we ended up recording this EVP, and as I played it back, we were really surprised, because not only did we pick up one voice, we picked up several voices, and they were clear as day. Like, some were really faint to listen to. So I got the earphones, and even without the earphones, they were pretty loud. Few voices were pretty loud. So when my dad said, "Is anybody there?" Okay, I'm a Bengali. I'm Indian, but I was raised overseas since I was a baby. So we moved back here to India in somewhere in the 2000s. And my dad and I spoke in English, so did he, but he did speak in Bengali as well to ask if anybody's there. So there were responses in English and in Bengali. So when he asked if someone's there, there was a male voice that said, "Ami achi, Ami achi," like that. "Ami achi" means "I am here" in Bengali. And when I also questioned in English in that EVP, I did hear a clear person, a man's voice saying, "I am there." It wasn't really like this, but it was I'm going to try to reenact it. It was like this, okay? "I am there. I am there." Like that, clear. And I was so shocked. And they also said yes in Bengali. And it blew our minds because it's the first time we had proof of something beyond, how do you call it? Like the afterlife. Definitely there were presences. And like I said, I never used to experiment with EVPs before. And after this incident happened, I shared it with my friend who's also a psychic. I don't know if I mentioned that before. And he told me that, yes, this is a class 1 EVP. I still have those. And okay, but today I don't practice these EVPs that to the software just to be on the safer side. So I'm going to tell you why. After this EVP incident happened, I began to experiment a lot with EVPs around the house. And what was weird is that when my dad would be around, we would definitely get something on the, recording. So I thought that maybe it's someone from my dad's side, maybe it's my grandfather who passed away or his brother. There have been a few deaths in the family. Well, obviously. But so I assumed that maybe it's them because they were speaking in our mother tongue. Anyway, it got to the point where I found myself doing EVPs all the time around the house. So I think that did lead to some disturbances. Now, we never had any weird occurrences happen in our house before, but after experimenting too much with EVPs, all of us, like me, my mom, my dad, and our pets, they did start noticing we did start noticing something out of the ordinary. Like, for example, when I'd be sleeping in my room, I would notice like the door opening. No, there was no draft, and none of my dogs were sleeping next to the door, because if you have a pet, sometimes they scratch their backs and that leads to the door opening. It was none of that. It would clearly open slowly, like I'm sleeping here and I could see the door just opening and nobody would be there. And we started hearing furniture moving in the living room, like heavy furniture, as if someone is dragging the furniture. And we'd go check, there would be nothing there. And I always used to feel really heavy in my room, like there's a heavy presence. Once I remember I was sitting on my laptop and working, and I distinctively heard a voice of a child laughing, like very faintly, but it was pretty clear, laughing and going towards my altar area where I had all my prayer things kept. And I didn't feel scared, but it was like, did this really just happen? And I started getting freaked out when there was like, how do I say this? In my room, there would be a horrible stench. Now, we maintain our house. I'm like a clean freak most of the time, like all the time I am. I can relate to Monica from Friends. I love to keep everything in its place and everything clean. So when this stench started coming from my room at random hours, I got really worried. It smelled like rotten eggs. And I even called my dad and my mom. Like whenever this would happen, I would call my parents because I was living with them at the time and I wanted them to also see what I'm experiencing. And even though they didn't voice it much, they didn't want to talk about it because they didn't want to attract any negativity in case there was something like that, which I'm sure there was. But I even sprinkled holy water, my dad did, in my room, and it didn't really stop. And one night when I was sleeping, I got up because literally saw the door open, and again, it was dark. None of my pets were outside. Nobody was there, and I just shot up on the bed and sat. And I had this really ominous feeling that something bad's gonna happen if I don't leave my room. So I just darted out of the room, and then I ended up contacting my friend who was in the States, and he guided me on how to do a cleansing of the house. And he actually told me that because I experimented so much with EVPs, it kind of opened up a portal in our house, which was attracting some beings. And during this time, Timothy, he became pretty inactive. He used to be really playful, and he just started sleeping more and not really responding to us, just pretty dull. So he said it's affecting him as well because he can actually see this thing. So actually, he told me something that's just wild. He said that a creature that looks like a dinosaur is roaming around the house, and it has come from a different dimension. It doesn't want to scare us, but it's just lost now. So that, you can imagine how you would feel if someone tells you that this is going on in your house. So I did the cleansing religiously for a few days and months actually, and I stopped doing EVPs completely, and it just stopped. Now I know there are lots of people who do EVPs, and it doesn't really necessarily entail a haunting in their house. However, I think during that time where I was living in, our neighborhood in general had a lot of questionable people, shall I say, living there, who not necessarily had the best of intentions, and they're pretty cruel to stray animals as well. So I think your neighborhood and your state of mind and people around you really do affect, experimenting with EVPs and the kind of results you might get. Not to mention if you're just doing it without any spiritual practice, without any prayer. So I pretty much stopped doing EVPs in that house. And oh yeah, and like I said, after doing EVPs, a bunch of weird things started happening. Well, in my room, there's like a bookshelf. And when my mom and my sister would come to visit, they would sit for tea. All of a sudden, like this is like in broad daylight, there'd be no wind, nothing, and the books would just keep falling. Or if we were sitting for tea in the evening, we could hear Jumanji banging, like literal banging sounds coming from the showcase, whereas none of my pets were there again. So that was pretty creepy. And once I remember, I was sitting with my mom in the afternoon. We were just discussing something in the living room, and all of a sudden we heard water noise, like someone, how someone pours water in a cup and you can hear that being poured. And it came, I know it could, like, it's not necessary that every noise has to be a haunting, but the thing is, it was right between us. Like, if I'm sitting here and my mom is right there, the noise is coming from somewhere in between us. So that was very strange. So anyway, I stopped doing EVPs after that pretty much. And my sister got so spooked from coming to our house that she literally used to be scared from entering our house because it got so bad. These noises, unexplained noises, the doors opening. So that is what happened in 2013, 2012. And Timothy, they say dogs can see things that we can't. They have sixth sense. And I read somewhere that because they can see the other side, they're never really scared. You'll never see them panicking because they can already see spirits. So that's one way to look at it, It's been a few years since this transpired, and sometimes I do catch myself trying to experiment with EVPs, not on the software, just on a normal phone, like the recorder. And I know there are tons of apps. I'm not that deep into it anymore, like before, because I feel there should be a purpose or intention behind it instead of just trying to experiment for fun. Because as we all know, and we might have heard, it can turn bad within less than fractions of seconds and really mess up your life. So for the purpose of this video, I thought it would be cool if I share with you guys a picture of Timothy and his mom, Daisy. Okay. I know it's a bit dark, but here. That's my baby Timothy, and that's Daisy. Daisy passed away in 2015, bless her dear heart, but this was the place. I love animals. My whole life literally revolves around animals, especially stray animals, and taking care of them and just loving them. I totally forgot to mention this, but during the time this was all transpiring, I remember when I used to sleep in my room, my bed would literally shake. It would like tremble. It wouldn't shake that badly, but there would be trembling of the bed. And there were many times where I shouted for my dad or my mom to come in and check this. And by the time they would come, obviously it would just stop. It got to the point where my dad decided to just be in the living room and work while I would be in my bedroom so I could just sleep for a while in peace. And every time it would shake, it would stop shaking when my parents would come. So that was really annoying for me. I remember being an insomniac for so long because of all this. And this is going to sound really weird, but I know that it happened with me. There were also times, like 2 or 3 times, where I'd lie down on my pillow and I could literally hear gentle growling sounds coming from inside my pillow. Now, I had 3 dogs at the time, and they were very gentle. They wouldn't growl like this. I mean, of course, dogs growl and fight and play, but this was really different. I could hear faint growling noise coming from my pillow. And at first, I thought it's nothing, like maybe I'm imagining it, but it was really disturbing because I couldn't explain it. And how do you tell someone that without coming off crazy? So I just decided to pray and just stop doing EVP immediately. And I remember once we had a house blessing, and the priest who had come, I actually asked him, I confided in him that this is going on and why is this happening? And he said it's not whatever these energies are in the house, it's not because of the EVPs or what we were doing. Well, it might have been attracted, but he said there are other people around, like in the neighborhood, in the adjacent building, who might be doing certain rituals which are not really holy, or you can call it not really good, or for the right purposes, with the right intentions. And that was actually the case. You know, at first, people used to think, well, at least, educated people, there's a notion that educated people, we don't talk about black magic. Come on, you know better than that. But as of recent times, and I've seen so many videos and heard so many cases about people and their experiences with black magic. I mean, people do that. You might not even know your neighbor well, or even your family members. You don't know what they're up to. Because in my adjacent building where we were living, there was a family, and they still are there. They do black magic. I mean, my friend, she would tell me, she was also my neighbor, and they also had experiences like this where their neighbors would always leave some nails beside the stair, and they would go out at midnight and light a candle under a tree and chant some things and leave some threads there. So that's like straight up black magic here on this side of the world, or maybe other countries as well. I don't know about that, but there are people like that, and what they're doing, that could attract some negative energies. Oh yeah, and my psychic friend also told me that it's not necessary that what we perceive to be a haunting is a haunting of ghosts. Sometimes it could be people's energy. Sometimes they're so negative that they take a form, energy shape, or form of their own. So whatever it is, I stopped doing it, and basically, there's nothing wrong with doing EVPs, but it's better to do it with some sort of spiritual practice and having a positive intention behind it, not just to goof around, because sometimes the price could be very heavy to pay. And it affected my entire family, and I, therefore, just stopped. I still have the EVPs which we received in recording. And I have to mention that the class EVPs that me and my dad did record, we never felt anything negative, okay? The first time we recorded these spirit voices, We were not scared. We were just in awe. It was like amazing to hear these voices and communicate with us, not only in one language, but in multiple languages. So there was no atmosphere of being afraid. But I think because I played around with it so much that maybe one thing led to another, and that's why certain hauntings kind of began in my home. But initially, it was really good, and I still have those EVPs. I mean, I'm never going to part ways with them because that's like my proof of the afterlife. I do consider it that. Even my dad, that's like my treasure. I don't listen to it time and again, but it is there. I do have it in my backup. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I have many more experiences. I have a really scary experience that I had in 2019. I will be sharing that soon. And please don't experiment around with all this practices. How do you call it? Like EVP, spiritual experiments. Don't just goof around, because it could be, I'm not going to say fatal, but it could really scare the daylights out of you and your family members, and nobody needs that bad juju in their home. So thank you so much for being here with me. I hope you have a wonderful time ahead, wherever you are. Stay blessed. And I just had to show this mug. Isn't it so cute? It's little spooky boo. So till next time, stay spooky. Bye for now.